Well, good afternoon, friends. Good afternoon. Hope you're doing well and hope you're having a great day on this October, I guess mid-October already. Well, how time just flies, hey, when you're having fun. Or actually, some of us may not be having that much fun with COVID here, but we're certainly coping, and hopefully you're doing well and hopefully you're safe and healthy, my friend. And today, we have a wonderful guest joining us. Michael, can you still hear me in the green room there, my friend? Wonderful. So we have Michael Crichton joining us on the Conversations with Dune and Friends. My name is Dune Nguyen, and I'm coming to you from Sherwood Park, Alberta. And Michael comes to us from Edmonton, Alberta today. And so we're Alberta team today. We're going to chat about creativity. We're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about show business and probably a bunch of other things, but certainly those things for sure. Now, let me do a quick introduction of Michael Kryton before we have him join us for an hour and a bit here, folks. Michael Kryton is a creative communications writer, producer, director. Musician, composer with 41 years experience in that, and ideation expert, applying his skill and a set for clients in the media and radio, television, web, entertainment and government and corporate industry and business associations and educational retail. So he wrote and directed William Shatner's Canadian tool, How Time Flies, and consulted to Nightingale Conant in Chicago on brand development. He has garnered international recognition from the Hollywood Radio Television Society honoring the world's best broadcast advertisements, the New York Radio and Television Festival. Now, the Radio Bureau of Canada, as well as the Television Bureau of Canada, and many others. He is also an author, the author of A Brilliant Idea Every 60 Seconds, an account of how to, of his ideation methodology, and published by Gildan Media New York. Musically, Michael has written many jingles for radio and television campaigns, interstitial music for Super Channel and Movie Central, and the various promotional corporate songs. At Production World, Michael's official title is Swiss Army Knife. Friends, help me in welcoming our wonderful guest today, Mr. Michael Kryton. How are you doing today, Michael? Are you enjoying the...
I don't know who you were talking about, but I'd like to meet that guy. Where is that guy?
Pretty cool guy, I say. And you look pretty cool there, my friend. I see Production World. I see Production World on your jacket there, or shirt.
Oh yeah. We're team players. We like to wear our uniforms sometimes at work and promote. You know, as they say. Very proud of this company. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, that's great. That's great. Now, fill in the gaps for us a little bit. Tell us a little bit more about your background. Any stories at all early on?
Yeah, I mean, originally, I'm from Montreal originally, and my intention was to get into theater. I had this fantasy about becoming an actor, and that was a process that eventually led me to Fort McMurray, of all places. And I kind of by happenstance got into radio at CJOK, a 1,000 watt radio station in Northern Alberta. And then that became my career, communications and production as well, because I was also recording in addition to writing commercial material. Eventually ended up at Kissin FM and became production manager and creative director with an icon of radio at the time, Mr. Bob McCord, and I was there for a few years, and then was going independent by a happenstance again, and a consumer electronics chain at the time called Warehouse Direct, known nationally as Multitech Warehouse Direct, was looking for a spokesperson, and I ended up becoming their on-camera spokesperson for a few years, and that's where I kind of gained a little bit of notoriety internationally, doing these crazy television commercials that were basically 30-second linear stream. There were no edits. It was me doing my thing for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And I did everything from put axes through speakers and, I put toast or put bread in VCRs and just created this, comedic thing, which ended up getting me a fair amount of attention nationally and to some degree internationally. So that's kind of the first phase of my career. And from there, I continued to be independent, and I eventually had my own production studio. And I was associated with Barry Allen and Keith James during that period of time in the 90s. But I don't know if you want to give tape. There might be some people who will, if they're old enough and watched enough television, would remember the Multitech, or where in Alberta it was Warehouse Direct, because there was a company called Multitech, and he wasn't willing to sell the name. So in Alberta, we operated as Multitech Warehouse Direct. But maybe roll a commercial or two, and who knows, there might be somebody out there who'll remember remember this stuff.
Yeah. So I'll bring that in just a moment here, Michael.
Sure.
And tell us if you can see the screen here as I bring it in. By the way, while the video is playing, you might also want to check the reflection on your thing with your ring light there on your glasses. But
right, I usually wear my glasses down because otherwise I can't see. I can't see diddly squat. Maybe when I don't need to read anything, I'll just take them off.
Minor technical point, but so here is the video. Let's watch this and just get a sense of your early career.
Wow.
I wouldn't recognize you if I see you in that video and now. Quite a change there, huh?
Yeah, a few years have changed for sure.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and maybe refresh this here so that we get from the beginning here. Here we go.
Things are cooking at Crazy Crazy Warehouse Direct. Did you know that when you buy our famous brand name electronics and appliances, you get them direct from the warehouse? That's why we call it Crazy Crazy Warehouse Direct. Immediate supply for immediate demand. For example, this is the deluxe Toshiba microwave oven with variable power and the famous 50-month warranty, $199. Better selection, low overhead, better prices. That's Crazy Crazy Warehouse Direct.
Love it.
Well, that's a pretty straightforward one. Maybe
Crazy Warehouse Direct.
This is more my thing.
Compact disc for $199. Now you can't take a
Love it.
Now it has the digital display and program search for just $199. No, you can't take it. Now, the reason we can sell this to you for $199 is because at Crazy Crazy Warehouse Direct, we have better selection, lower overhead, better prices. Some people just can't wait when it comes to Crazy Crazy Warehouse Direct.
What's interesting about
this is incredible, and it's from Crazy Crazy's Warehouse Direct for Christmas.
Those are the earliest ones when I started, because at the time we were Crazy as well, and we were morphing into Warehouse Direct at the time, and we just got wacky with the commercials. We had turkeys. I was juggling eggs. It was a lot of fun, and I remember one publication wrote something, Marketing Communications, I believe, and compared it to sort of like SCTV's type of stuff. And
those were the days, hey?
No, it was a lot of fun. And eventually the company folded, pulled up its tent, and then became something else, Famous Brands, and moved on. And the fellow I work with, Michael J. McKenna, just a brilliant businessman and still active today, but made a fortune, of course, but a brilliant young guy who really actually dragged the industry into the formats, certainly in print at the time, because he really understood price point. And these were commodities, right? And we were selling electronics at very inexpensive prices. So that was I learned a lot from him in terms of advertising, marketing, pricing, and those kinds of things that would influence a lot of work I did in advertising communications as well as marketing communications as well over the decades.
In other words, it was a fun learning experience. It
was grueling. I mean, those shoots would take 5-6 hours, and at one point we were in Montreal, so I would produce or perform, if you will, upwards of 20 commercials in a night. And then, you know, you have to keep remembering 30 seconds because it was all memorized, right?
Yeah.
So short-term digit span.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could do it now, but
I can tell our viewers who may or may not know this fact, and that is sometimes a really short piece of presentation requires a whole lot of prep because you don't have time to kind of warm up to it, to meandering into it, right?
well, I mean, that's it. And something we will talk about is the process. And for me, I began to investigate my own process and wondered how was it I was generating ideas and what was I really doing. But over the time, at the time I didn't know I was going to eventually write a book about it. But I would look at what I called inherent values to discover what the relationships were between product and the consumer.
Yeah.
Trigger ideas that would lead to the kind of commercials that I produced, because I worked hard at it, and I think I earned a little bit of a reputation for doing things that people would call outside the box, although I don't like the term because that's very stressful for a creative person. We're always in a box. It's ever expanding because we only know what we know. And so, yeah, I had a lot of fun over the years, and that kind of work or that thinking, you know, it crept into everything I would do in writing scripts for shows or for corporate work. I did a lot of corpumentaries. I have done a couple of documentaries in my time as a writer, and also, as you mentioned, working with people like William Shatner, and so that, you know, that learning curve for me in terms of understanding what the key ingredients were that would trigger ideas and lead to some nice creative solutions for the people I was working with.
Cool. So that's great. I do hear some of my sound coming back. Is there any way to manage those speakers of yours with the microphone? Maybe point this microphone even away from your speakers some more? Because if I'm hearing,
I can turn down my speakers more if you want. I can still hear you.
Yeah, because if I'm hearing
turn that way. How's that?
Yeah, if I'm hearing it, that means the video is going to be spoiled by that feedback there, that echo there. All right, so that's a bit better. Still there, but a bit better. All right, so a little distracting for me. Tell us more. So you evolved from that. What was your next sort of career move after these grueling sets of lots and lots and lots of commercials?
Well, by the year 2000, I basically imploded. You know, there was a lot of stress that cost me in terms of relationships and those kinds of things. I decided I would get rid of all the technology because at the time, in a lot of ways, I'm privileged because I watched an industry evolve. Communications went from analog to digital, and I was staying on top of it. And I was very technically oriented. I could, you know, I recorded audio, I produced, I mixed, I produced music. I was doing my own editing. I was the first guy to buy an Avid Media Suite Pro workstation in Alberta, and according to the people in the industry, the first one, at least in Alberta, to ever make it commercially viable. But technology was a catch-up game, and it was very costly because the formats were constantly changing, and the file formats were changing, et cetera, et cetera. So I divested myself of all technology, got rid of my studio, and decided I would focus only on creativity. And I was out of a job. Without the studio, I didn't have anything. So I put the word out there, and I ended up working with the Idea Factory for about 5 or 6 years. And they were a television production company that was well known for doing a lot of documentaries with CBC Life and Times. It's where I work with Drew Martin, who's a fantastic creative mind in Edmonton as well.
Yeah.
His company, I believe, is called Mighty Motion Pictures. And he's done some amazing documentaries as well. And I got a chance to explore outside of just, you know, advertising communication. Although what was interesting is that when Sonic Radio first started in Edmonton, Stu Morton, who was the owner, came to me and said, would you be willing to be outsourced to produce all the radio commercials for the radio station, which was unusual because radio stations produce their own commercials in-house. So I ended up getting pulled back in a little bit more to broadcast, even though I was doing television commercials as well with Idea Factory.
Mm-hmm.
And it was also during that time that I began to work with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, doing tribute videos and also writing their ball, the chamber ball. I wrote and produced it, and did a lot of elements for it, including the Northern Lights Award of Distinction video, which gave me a chance to meet some incredible people. And there you have a couple of visuals. One of the people I worked with, it was a real privilege, was Tommy Banks at the time. And for people who may not know who Tommy Banks is, he had a television show. He was an incredible composer, musician, producer, and he had a show that everybody in Canada would watch once a week. And he's worked with everybody on the planet, and so he was now a senator, or almost at the tail end. I think he was about to retire, or maybe he had retired. And I got to do his tribute video, and it was neat because, again, looking at inherent values, I thought to myself, how would we work this? And so I invited him into the studio, where I ended up at that point, which is actually at Production World, because after, maybe I'm getting ahead of myself slightly, but after the Idea Factory, I ended up leaving because I got a book contract with a fellow by the name of Clarence Shields, who had already started a series called The Bachelor's Guide. And he asked me to write the third book in the series, which was The Father's Guide to Surviving with Kids. So it enabled me to dive into some writing on a serious level. It was, he had a publishing company. It was published through his company. And I worked on those kinds of things, got a little bit more into what was going on in terms of the internet and web content and that kind of thing, producing material, including video material, articles, that, quite a plethora of things. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I ended up joining, at the time they were called Axe Productions, which is now Production World. And after a couple of years, I was nagging them, we should build a studio. And they finally kind of thought about it. And we've built the first studio, which is the green screen studio. And it was in there that I ended up recording Tommy Banks and PJ Perry, which was fantastic. So I recorded them playing, and I used that as an interstitial in this video tribute to them, and of course got to interview them both. I'd actually done PJ Perry's electronic press kit when I was in the studio that I was, or I had a studio next to Barry Allen, and I ended up producing an electronic press kit for PJ Perry, who is a Juno Award-winning saxophonist, jazz saxophonist, and people who know jazz and are old enough will certainly recognize the name of PJ Perry. And PJ and Tommy Banks played a lot together, and they won Junos for a couple of albums. And so it was a chance to work with a man. I mean, the humility of the man was amazing. And I got to work with a lot of interesting people over those years who were being honored by the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Then they eventually changed their format. But I did end up working with Production World because now they were doing the first half of the ball was kind of the corporate side, which I still ended up working with until about 2015 or 16, somewhere in there. And then Axe Productions, which eventually became Production World in 2012, they would do the concert on the back half because Production World is a live event production company. So that phase began to introduce me to live events. I produced stuff for the Advertising Club of Edmonton. I worked a little bit with Ampia through those years. So I had a chance to now work with live events in Edmonton, and had a chance to really do some wacky things as well, and had a lot of fun. So that was kind of the second phase, I would say, of my career.
Yeah.
And then during that time, Mike Anderson of Trickstar, this takes us a bit into the William Shatner story. Mike Anderson from Trickstar came to me, and he had actually an office at Axe Productions at the time. And he said, would you be interested in writing and directing William Shatner and his show for Canadian Tour? And after about a half a second, I said, you had me at I love you. And it was a tricky show because it was a story of his life. And the format was him and Alan Cross, who's a radio guy out of Toronto, and some people may recognize his name. Really, wonderful man, and does a lot of writing for radio. And so it was like almost like an interview, two-man sort of conversation. And William would tell all these. Shatner comes in and wearing sweats and everything, and I'm just sitting there. And so he was talking for about the first 10, 15 minutes, and we were there. The team was there, including Mike Anderson and Carmen Chomey and Chris Shonigat. And so we're listening to him, and I'm trying to, like I say, you got to say something, Michael, got to say something. And eventually I did, because there was an issue with the format of the show, and I suggested a solution that he actually liked. And his favorite thing was always saying, "That's fabulous." One of his and the other word was gravitas. Everything had gravitas. So I got to work with him and writing the script. I remember the first script I sent to him, he phones me up and he says, "Michael, I have some concerns." And so as the blood is draining from my body, I kept my wherewithal and said, "Well," I said, "it's a first draft, and it's a reference point. So you just tell me what your concerns are." And it was the most amazing 3.5-hour conversation that I had with a man. And the second draft, he liked it, and it went on. And we had a lot of fun, because from Vancouver to finished in Montreal, my hometown, which is so cool because I got to do the show at Place des Arts, where as a kid I used to go see shows. And there were things that would come up. That's me playing. That was a one-time thing. He decided he wanted to do the hockey song, and he does a sing-speak thing. He doesn't actually sing. Matter of fact, there's a new album out, a blues album, that's doing apparently very well. So he wanted to do that, and I wanted to do it with an acoustic guitar. He says, "No, I want to rock it up," he said. So we brought in a guitar from whatever store it was. This is us actually in the rehearsal in Vancouver that night. And he wanted me to play like a hard chunk rock and roll kind of song. Well, and it was a mess. We performed it that night, and I knew it was not pretty, although I think the audience, they seemed to enjoy it. But Mike Anderson comes up to me after the show and says, "Michael, I don't think we're going to do that again." And I said, "Thank God." It was just awful. It was just awful. But the rest of the show was great. And we had a lot of fun over the course of time, and people loved him. I mean, he is iconic, and he's got an incredible work ethic, highly creative. But one thing I learned is that if you're going to pitch an idea to him, it can't be gratuitous. You got to have a rationale, and so that was something was a methodology I work with anyway. In a lot of ways, we had an interesting background, because he was born and raised in Montreal, son of a Jewish immigrant. I was born and raised in Montreal, son of a Jewish immigrant. He went to McGill. I went to St. George, which became Concordia University, but we were 20 years apart. I mean, he did radio and theater in Montreal. I did radio and theater in Montreal. But again, it was 20 years apart. And there's the team, by the way, great team. Garrett and Chris Shonigat on the right, Garrett on the left, me in the middle. And this is us obviously going through changes or developments in the scripting and the visuals, because there was a ton of video clips and all that kind of thing. Anyway, but he was a wonderful man, and I reach out to him from time to time and ask him if he'd be interested in something, and I always get a polite no. But I tried to pitch him if he wanted to do documentary, and I wanted to introduce him to Adam Scorgie, who just recently Inmate Number One, his documentary, won an award at Ampia, and he's been winning international awards. I'm smelling Oscar for Adam Scorgie. But again, and then his response to me was, "Michael, I don't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday." And anyway, I might go back to him and do it again. So that show kind of, those years, that came to the end of the phase. And then the next part of the story is Axe Productions becoming Production World, and everything that has happened since then, which has been extraordinary, especially in the face of when COVID hit, which is really the crux of a new chapter that I've been involved with since March. Production World is a tier 1 production company and has been for over 25 years, and does all the stuff at River Cree, for example. or had been involved in some of the ancillary stuff in Camrose, a Big Valley Jamboree. We've done the Singing Christmas Tree at the Jubilee. Had done the Chamber Ball for many years, and a large amount of large-scale live event shows. And then on March 13th, Friday the 13th, as we all remember, and we had a slew of projects. And then suddenly the COVID thing was breaking, and I was watching the guys in operations at the whiteboard. I think we'd have a digital board, but they liked it old school, and they're just putting the red pen through every event. And by the end of the afternoon, we were out of work in one day.
Wow.
And we were like deer in the headlights. And so we go home. It's the weekend. We all come back. I didn't even know if I had a job, because aside from doing several things for them, because my main thing is I actually manage the e-commerce store shop production world, and we sell gear and that sort of thing. But I write and I do voice work with them. They give me corporate writing assignments, proposals, letters, other things. Anyway, I come back not even knowing if I have a job, and we started having a conversation that day, and it came around to the possibility of what we might do virtually, because we had just done a virtual event with Driving Force across 3 provinces. So we decided to retool, and we went out to the marketplace within the week, and within a week and a half, we had our first gig with Junior Achievement. And we changed the lobby altogether into a studio with a huge video wall, the cameras, all those things. And Chris Duncan, who heads up our video production side, is now heading up the virtual side and is driving that ship, and has been an amazing, relentless guy in making things happen. We started to do these gigs, and we had 3, 4, 5. And then John Beckett and Kelly Chemo, after about, 2 months of this, said, we're going to build a bigger studio.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to show, there's an image there. It was Brett Kissel, the Canadian country music artist, who blessed us with being the first performance in that studio. We rearranged the warehouse. We have like millions of dollars worth of inventory, and we moved it all and carved out a 3,000 square foot space in which we used the inventory that was now sitting still doing nothing, and built this amazing production facility. And Brett Kissel, we did it with 6 weeks maybe. Mm-hmm. And the guys, it was the crew that did it. And so they reorganized the warehouse, and we built this amazing studio. That's actually a more recent event there. That was for Continuing Care, I think it's called. I need my glasses now. Yeah, that was my book there. Oh, all kinds of interesting pictures. That's my family, Stephen Mandel. That's the lobby. That's the actual lobby to the new studio. It's really beautiful. And then if you can find the Brett Kissel photo, that's the studio itself. Yeah, just William Shatner. I never get tired of seeing those images. There it is. That's the new studio. And we've been having phenomenal success. There's an event going on in there right now. We've got events coming up. We are busy. Mm-hmm. And that saved the company. And in addition to that, I added a component using the e-commerce store. So we do silent auctions for the organizations that are doing gala fundraisers. So we have taken everything that we are, and really we are vertically integrated. We even have a commercial division, but we took everything as a vertically integrated company, and we really thought outside the box and retooled ourselves and created something that is keeping us going, but it's also maximizing the experience for the clients and the audience. The thing that is important is, and probably one of the most important factors for the companies, is that because they are no longer renting a venue, and I don't mean, they're suffering too, but no longer renting conference centers and so on, they're actually able to save a bit of money because now it's virtual and the engagement is virtual. And it's kind of interesting because I remember we're doing JA, Junior Achievement, and we were doing a live auction with Danny Hooper, who's a master and very funny guy. And we had a Connor McDavid hockey jersey. We set a record. First hockey jersey of his signed that sold for $10,000. Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I mean, we have had to go through a transition, and in our industry, everyone is. You know, the various companies that are doing live event production are having to find other ways of surviving. But virtual has opened up, and I say virtual is here to stay. It won't replace live events once they come back. And the prognosis is that at best case scenario, I'm thinking next October we might see something coming back. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on how we manage, and certainly our healthcare system, I think, is doing what it can. But it's probably going to be October before we start seeing live events. And I'm also involved as a member of the board of directors of Walter Dale Theater, which is an amateur theater company that has been around since 1958. And even we, in that scenario, have to think about how are we going to do live theater? And we have a launch program, and we are going to be relaunching an abbreviated season. And but everybody has to rethink. But virtual will, I think, remain a part of the landscape because you can still have a live event, but now you can expand the audience that you're reaching. And that opens up a huge amount of doors. You can do workshops or speaking engagements. You can have your audience there, and you can have your audience regionally or nationally or internationally. So virtual is something we jumped on, and we know that we are way ahead of the curve in terms of our industry here in the region. Not to boast, but it's true because we made the decision to do that. And we're still on a learning curve. Zoom loves us, and Zoom has been really following us and consulting with us. And Zoom as a platform still has a ways to go because of things like inherent latencies, even though you can get technology that adjusts syncing and so on. But, you know, Zoom is evolving as we all are in this particular game. So production world has really become a very interesting story within the live event sphere. And I love coming to work, and, you know, the people here are amazing and incredibly talented and skilled. And so that's that story.
I wanted to play a video, and then I have some questions for you, my friend.
Sure.
I mean, you covered a lot of grounds there, and I want to poke at a few
Well,
things.
you're only giving me an hour.
No, you have as much time as you want, my friend.
It's like, did we lose everybody after 12 minutes?
The video that I'm going to play is of Brett Kissel and his sentiments that he shared about production world. While I bring that up there, Michael, tell us a bit about that.
Well, we really were pushing the schedule to open, to get the studio active. And we had done other stuff with Brett Kissel through various concerts. He actually did a live performance in one of the earlier virtual events that we did. And we asked him and said, we're going to have the studio ready. Would you be willing to, you know, do it? And he had planned to do a live sort of concert. And he came in and he performed. It was amazing and just loved the experience. But he was the acid test. And this, especially for, you know, country music artists are very picky. I mean, not to say rock artists aren't, but their material is very clean. It's, you know, everything is very, very, very meticulous in many respects. So this was a good test for us. And this video is his reaction after he finished doing his virtual show.
All right, let's roll the clip here. Tell me if you can hear the sound as well. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I can hear.
1, 2. Okay.
So Brett, tell me about this evening. What led to this YouTube concert, and Why did you decide to have it?
In this day and age, all of us need to be creative. We need to think about different ways to connect with our fans. And I thought, what better way than to have an opportunity to come to a studio, get a couple cameras together, and do something online as a way to connect and play a concert. When I arrived here at Production World, I was floored. It wasn't just some studio and some cameras. This is one of the most extraordinary setups I've ever seen. I haven't seen something like this, like LA, New York level is what we've got here in Edmonton, which it boggles my mind. I am so proud that we got to do this and connect in the most elite way. And I think my fans loved every minute of it.
And how do you think that other musicians could take advantage of a studio like this?
The biggest thing that I would say for other acts who are looking for a way to bring live music back, well, this is the perfect opportunity because you've got all of the gear and all of the means to put on a high quality show that's similar to watching a live concert, a live DVD, a live performance that you would buy at a store. Well, you're actually doing it legit live, and you've got all of the infrastructure here. So this is a no-brainer for me until the world opens up, and even after it does. This is the most pro place and the best place if you want to connect one-on-one with your fans.
On a personal level, can you tell me what it's been like as a performer, especially a rising performer in this country the last few months?
For me, when I was coming up through the ranks, when I was just a kid, I was very, very lucky to have some extraordinary relationships built. One of those being obviously with Production World. As time went on and I started to hone my craft and maybe become a better entertainer or get more contacts and get more hit songs under my belt, it was really great for me to grow with the company Production World and rise and go from the opening act to the headliner. Over the last couple of months, as we came up with the drive-in concept that went across Canada, it was really, really great to have some incredible gear. And yeah, of course. Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
And hospitality too, at its finest. When it comes to our drive-in tour that we did and the partnership that we formed with Production World, there was no way we could have done our initial shows in Edmonton without them, because they believed in the power of bringing live music back. They believed in the concept the way that I did, the way that our government did, and the way that our fans did. And it goes to show, when you sell out 8 shows in 1 hour, it goes to show there's a lot of hunger for live music, and Production World put me on the map.
Right on. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks,
for all
buddy.
your success. Man.
Appreciate it. Cheers. Thank you.
Enjoy the night.
Yeah, I promise. Thank you.
Thanks.
What's interesting for me when I watched that clip is that I saw music as an industry begin to transform in the 90s when I was had a relationship with Barry Allen. The independent music scene came to life because record companies were no longer just you go there and you get signed and there's your label and away you go with an audition tape. Now the companies wanted you to prove that you had marketability. So could you sell your own CDs? At the time, it was pretty much CDs at that point. And it's like Wide Mouth Mason, there are so many artists and I'm sure they can relate. And so we've continued. Well, the independent music scene, of course, became huge. And, even now there's with virtual and sort of this format, that opens up another thing. And Brett refers to the drive-in thing. We did that at the River Cree. And there were tons of cars and they watched Brett and perform outside. I mean, it literally begins to sort of shift the thinking about what a live concert is and what the format of engagement is. And this becomes important, but then it's important to have the right technology and the right people because you want the quality of sound, you want the quality of the visual, you want creativity as well. It's one thing just to have a camera on a performer, but even that's going to evolve, I think, in terms of what you actually see during a concert and how you experience it as a member of the audience. So Brett really, I thought what he said was very important. I mean, certainly a great, promo for Production World. Thank you very much. But it's the truth. I mean, we partnered and that's how we look at it. I think that studios, live event companies, we're not just a company for rent. We're not an audiovisual company for rent, some AV hotel company. We are a producing company. We are a partner in your creative process. And I think we have to look at it that way, which means how do we understand what the artist is doing online and in the studio and at an event. So that's another revolution that continues to sort of move on, move forward.
Yeah, wonderful. Well,
So you had a question.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Tell me your journey in book writing and the things you've discovered in book writing, and probably a little bit of a little known fact that your book was translated into my mother tongue, Vietnamese. Tell us about that. Yeah,
there you go.
Let me feature
if
you.
You're really nice to me. I'll let you borrow this one. You can tell me what it reads like in Vietnamese. This is the original one. I thought we could show the picture, but I love holding up my own book. Promo.
Yeah, I want to see the Vietnamese one again, nice and steady.
And what's that?
If you hold up the Vietnamese translated.
Oh yeah, for sure. There you go.
Nice and steady, up a little higher. There we go. You see, I can read that stuff. Now I'm not as good with Vietnamese anymore.
All right, I want you to read this then and tell me what it's.
Okay, it says Michael Crichton is.
Yeah. Actually, I believe the translation of the title is "One Idea, 1 Minute." I'm not sure. What is the title? What is the title?
Well, yeah.
Is it
60 seconds? So it goes 60 seconds. One idea. Yeah. So it's translated.
Oh, it's pretty close. That's pretty good. Actually, it was interesting because when I went to the site that in Vietnam that's marketing the book, and then translated it using Google Translate, they actually almost wrote the synopsis of the book better than I did. I'm serious. I read it and I went, whoa, maybe I should steal that. Anyway, in the early 2000s, I conceptualized a brilliant idea every 60 seconds, but didn't know where I was going to go with it. And it wasn't until I started it in 2008, and it wasn't until 2015 that I finally finished the manuscript, sent it around. But I was fortunate that I had done work for Nightingale Conant. Now, who they are, some people might know the name Earl Nightingale, who was a radio legend and The Strangest Secret, and Lloyd Conant, who was a marketing guy in the 50s. It was Lloyd who suggested that he record The Strangest Secret, and it was the first self-help publication. In fact, they are the DNA and the invention of self-help as a genre. So Nightingale Conant was the company they formed in 1960. And I got a call from the president and CEO in, I don't know, it was 2014 or 13, whenever it was. And he said, hi, I'm Gary Chappell from Nightingale Conant, president and CEO. I'd like you to come down and help us with some branding development that we want to do. I ended up meeting a guy by the name of Dan Strutzel, who was at the time vice president of publishing for the company. Gary eventually retired. Dan eventually moved on and become a literary agent, and we still were connected. I connected with Dan. I sent him the manuscript. He says, I'd love to be your agent. And within 1 month, I had a publishing deal out of New York. So off it went, and it's on all the platforms. And believe you me, I'm not going to retire on what I make, but the book has generated a lot of activity for me. Now, what it's about is my ideation methodology that is designed for someone that if you are hungover on Sunday morning and you need to generate ideas, the toolkit allows you to do that without necessarily having to work very hard from a thinking standpoint. Because what it does, there's 9 inherent values. I don't want to get too intellectual, but there are 9 inherent values which are like tool bits for a drill. And what it does is it gives you a reference point from which to begin to assess what you need to understand about something. Like, for example, you have something I call by implication. That's an inherent tool where you learn to investigate the implications of something. There's a thing called proximity influence. An example of proximity influence is how can you stand, what I say is if you want to make money stand next to it. So for example, if I've done work for a big company or you've done something, you put that brand or logo on your website. Well, that's proximity influence. So what you're doing is you're leveraging credibility. Problem solution is another one. A problem has a solution, and it goes hand in hand with another inherent value called cause and effect. And so it teaches you how listing causes, listing effects, compartmentalizing or putting things in groups, and suddenly ideas are triggered. Because what people tend to do is look up in the sky and hope the idea falls on them. It's kind of funny because Stephen King, I think most people would know who Stephen King is. Well, if you don't, he's a worldwide best-selling author with over 80 best-selling books, and horror is his genre. He believes in the whole happenstance thing, and he and I are actually diametrically opposed. Although I respect him as a writer, and I respect how he does this thing. But to me, it's not just a happenstance. Ideas come from your brain connecting the dots on things, but you can focus the lens of your mind so that you get more quickly to those moments of an idea being generated. An idea is a derivative of things that you think about. And yeah, people might say, well, what's the big idea? Well, it was always there in a way. It's just a matter of connecting dots. Now, to me, it's a second language. But I have people, of course, bought the book and have given me comments. And their writers, for example, they have their favorite drill bits that they use, as they call it, that really help them when they're really looking for something for a creative premise. Now, whether you're a writer, whether you're looking to improve your relationships, whether you're looking to develop productivity in your company, the book is applicable to all of these things, because generally we're trying to find solutions to problems like, why are you not as productive as you could be? The other thing it does, and this is my mantra based on something John Cleese of Monty Python said, that creativity is not a talent. It is a way of operating. A lot of people put creativity somewhere out there. We are all creative, naturally, instinctively. It's a way we operate. So everyone is creative. It doesn't mean you have to write a best-selling book. It doesn't mean you have to invent Facebook. Yes, those are iconic things of work stemming from many ideas that have flourished over time. But the thing is, anyone can generate actionable and brilliant ideas very quickly. And I decided I wanted to leave something behind as a legacy, and a brilliant idea every 60 seconds is that legacy for me. It's the toolkit. And for my kids and my family, I mean, they can always look at it, and now I have 3 beautiful granddaughters. But one day they can read that and they'll know how grandpa thought creatively. Mm-hmm. So that's another thing that it is. But there are times that I go back to my own book, because in a way, once you publish or once you write a book, it becomes its own creative thing. It's like a song. Yeah. It's no longer just you. It's your song. But really, the song takes on its own life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, even if you're a songwriter and you're looking for ideas, or a screenplay writer, whoever you may be, and not just in the creative realm, maybe you're a business person looking to innovate, or a company. What I feel is missing in the world, especially in a lot of corporate structures, is fostering and fueling the creative thinking and process within a company. And the book also talks about that and the importance of that. And I've done some talks and workshops, and I reinforce it. And certainly people get it when they're confronted with what I have to say. Mm-hmm. But it's true. And it's amazing what I've seen in workshops where once people kind of let the guard down on, I'm not that creative, which I'll never accept from anyone, mm-hmm. that once they realize that they are creative, it is amazing what happens within a group. And if there was any way I could change things on a bigger scale, I would love to be able to see that happen, because especially in a province like Alberta, where we talk about the need for diversification, and Lord knows we need that now. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing you want to do is to get people out of their silos. And to do that, one of the ways to do that, aside from using money and managing money more effectively, is to unleash the creative process that goes on, because frankly, everything comes from an idea.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Amen. Yeah. Definitely, all of what you've said there resonated with me, and that's how I see the world as well when it comes to creativity and innovation. Because the fact is, creativity, there's a process allows you to be more creative. So there's science, if you will, that will actually support and promote and stimulate and spawn creativity. So absolutely, you're preaching to the converted, my friend.
Well, it's, you know what, you say science, and that's a good point. It is both an art and a science.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. And so whether you're right brain or left brain, it doesn't matter. Creativity finds, hey, I have met some accountants. They're some of the most creative people I've met.
Mm.
You know, so, you know, there are people that will, you know, sort of categorize themselves or compartmentalize themselves by saying, well, I'm not creative, or I'm not, you know, I'm creativity, I don't really get it. But really, you do. You just don't necessarily understand it in a more unbridled context.
If I could add to that, creativity doesn't have to be anything related to art. Creativity
Right.
is just like it says. Can you create? Can you create what is seemingly new? And by the way, there's not much new under the sun. Where all we do is we actually take this and take that and triangulate it and superimpose it and spawn something that's a combination of two or three things or whatever have you. A lot of time, that's how creativity happens. Is we look at existing parts of the world, right, and we merge it, we combine it in a certain way. And I think you've said that earlier as well.
Well, the self-help genre, as an example, I wouldn't necessarily put fiction altogether in that, although it can relate to fiction. But the self-help genre is exactly what you've described, more or less. Mm-hmm. Because look, becoming a better you, there's only so many ways of approaching it, but people will find maybe a different spin on it, a different context. I'm not the first person to write a book on creativity. You go into the creative, you know, go on Amazon. I'm up against thousands of book titles that are in the same genre, and well, there are a lot of good ones, many good ones. But at the same time, you find your own thing. But here's a I think a good point is that if you are writing a book or you're wanting to do those kinds of things, again, like the music industry, it's more than just you doing your thing. You have to really understand, how do you connect what you're doing to your audience, and how do you build an audience? Because you don't just go on the internet, start a podcast, and suddenly you're going to have thousands of people at your beck and call. Mm-hmm. You have to build that audience. It's like I say to people, don't like me on Facebook, share me. Mm-hmm. Because like does not equate to any value in social media other than for sort of gratification and maybe improving your self-esteem. Mm-hmm. But when you share something, mm-hmm, you're exposing that now to a bigger audience. Mm-hmm. And if someone in your community shares, sharing is how we can help each other build business, build awareness, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a message I'd like to get out there more. And I do from time to time. Thank you for the like, but really share, and share. Now, I understand that people may not feel comfortable sharing something. So it's not like I'm forcing you to do it. But if you really support what you see, then the best value you can give, certainly on social media, is to retweet, to share, you know, et cetera. Well, LinkedIn, or whether it's Instagram, or wherever whatever your social media thing is.
As they say, you know, sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring.
So I want to go to your website a little bit. Just tell us about the kind of things they might find on your website. Tell me any place.
Well, it's all about me.
Yeah.
It's all about me, Dune.
Well, there's some commercials.
Website, there's
some recent commercials, radio commercials, whether it's Sherwood Park, Honda, or whatever have you.
Oh, yeah. Actually,
some of that.
Sherwood Park Dodge radio, mm-hmm, was perhaps the most successful radio campaign that I ever wrote and produced. Mm. The idea was originally Scott Held, is the principal. And so he says, I want to do something wacky and funny. I said, I want to tell the truth.
Hmm.
I said, well, if you want to tell the truth, you better be prepared to tell the truth. Anyway, you'll find on my website, of course, bio material about me, a chance to buy the book. Also, there's a portfolio there.
Mm-hmm.
So you can pick on various things to listen to, some radio stuff, some video, that sort of thing. So you basically get a snapshot of who I am and what I'm doing. I've been a little bit behind in updating it, but because I've been working so much online with Production World and Shop Production World that I really haven't spent enough time doing work on my own site. But it basically tells my story. And of course, this is the proximity influence. You see, the reason I do that is because people will ask that question. So this is me standing next to the money. But I need a new icon. So if anybody out there knows of some superstar who could use my skill set, by all means, happy to jump in. But not. It's also because I have a tremendous respect for the man. I do. I grew up watching Star Trek, and having worked with him, it's always been one of the favored moments in my career. And now my other favorite moment is Production World, and the work we're doing here is, working with people like Chris Duncan and John Beckett and Kelly Kimo and everybody, Denton and Scott and Pally, a young fellow from Europe who has been on our team for technical list. All these guys are amazingly brilliant. And
shall I play
that's another highlight? But yeah, I don't know if you want to play one, or can you hear it? What's on there?
I'm gonna play Sherwood Dodge offer. Do you want to go with there? You want to?
Sure. Don't play Scott and Nuge. That was Nuge and Hopkins. It's kind of a thing. I don't know, nothing against Nuge, but it's kind of your typical hockey player type thing. So yeah, play one of them. I can't remember what it is.
No credit, no problem. No way, we're saying no. If you've been refused, then we refuse to say no to you. All we need is a signature. Now's your opportunity to buy more and save big. Plastic paycheck, whatever it takes. We want your business, and we'll keep sucking it out of you until there's nothing left.
That's why I'm not big on sales. Scott here from Sherwood Dodge. We price things right up front. Here's what I mean. Get a brand new Ram 2500 Longhorn diesel 4x4 crew cab. Was $79,300, now $59,900. Save almost $20,000. Sherwood Dodge. Priced right up front. And none of this.
Now offer limited restrictions apply. Find available on request. This offer bogus everywhere.
So it was basically telling the truth in advertising. Like, we once had a June sucked sale. Because June sucked. So we came out and said June sucked sale, and we don't sell. And we also would say things like, we don't sell anything below cost because we have to pay bills. And one of the biggest messages that people loved was when we said, you're not one of the family. We just want you to buy a car. And it was this unvarnished, language and message that got out there. And we ran this thing for about 6 or 7 years overall. Gordon Marriott was part of it, who here's another Ampy Award winner this year, a voiceover artist, and he does impressions. So we did a bunch of commercials where he plays Sam Elliott, although we don't call him Sam Elliott because that would be copyright infringement. And so we did a bunch of radio spots with him as Sam Elliott that were just hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And he does Sam Elliott better than Sam Elliott does Sam Elliott.
There's a cool looking photo of you. You look very
well, that's a photo. My son Brock is a professional photographer, known for his headshots actually in Edmonton. And that's a little while ago. I obviously got my beard's a little longer, my hair's a little bit longer now, but I really like that shot, and it's a lovely portrait shot that he did for the website. So
let me put his name on screen here. I assume Brock.
Yeah, Brock, BROCK, Brock Crichton.
So I'm going to say here.
So if you need a headshot, go to the Crichtons. No, he's a bit of a chip off the old block and entrepreneurial, and got into things, done some video production as well, and he's like me. He likes to put the creativity out there, and is always generating ideas that even baffle me sometimes.
Very cool.
It's kind of fun when your family is, and every one of my children, I have 3 boys and a daughter, all highly creative and all in very different areas, but highly creative. And, I'm kind of hoping they, I'm glad. I mean, I'm happy because again, to me, I think the more you are open to who you are creatively, and in the book, I do talk about how you can connect with the nature of your own creativity to discover who you are creatively and how you operate creatively. And it's quite a surprise to many people. But when you get in touch with that, it's amazing what happens in terms of how you even have conversations with people and how your relationships begin to sort of take shape because you're actually connecting more deeply with people.
Yeah. Tell me, I want to go back to the book a little bit. How long did it take you to write it? I know you had the ideas culminating for probably a decade or more, but when you got into, okay, I'm going to write this book, how long was it before it was done and manuscript was done?
Well,
And how long was it before it was
it's
published?
interesting. The Bachelor or the Father's Guide to Surviving with Kids, you showed a picture of that. I think that was 60 days. A brilliant idea every 60 seconds took 2 years. Yeah, it took me 2 years on and off. And I would go back and then I'd rewrite. At one point, I almost had a meltdown because I read my book that I'd written. I'd finished the first draft and read it. And I said, what the F is this all about? I was baffled by myself. And I went, this is a self-indulgent piece of drivel. and I had to go back and wholesale change things. I changed the structure. I rewrote things. And eventually I asked myself, what's my, I had a purpose. And now having gone through the process of writing, and writers, I think, will tell you this, that, you begin to learn about yourself too. And you begin to learn about how things are connecting with other people. And I went back and did the wholesale change. And finally, by the latter part of 2014, by fall, I'd finally finished it. And I was gone through editing, and I was good with the draft. But it did take me, once I got seriously into it, it was about a 2-year period.
Yeah. I do want to show at least a part of this video called A Virtual Night Out. Tell us a little bit about that. We're getting back into, again, production world and the story about dealing with the COVID context and coming out of that. Tell us a bit about that before I roll the clip here.
Sure. Well, this video really is the departure point of the story in terms of production world. Not just production world, a group of people that had to decide how are we going to move forward and keep doing the work that we love to do. And so we finally put the sort of the pieces of the puzzle together, created the studio, found someone who was willing to be the first guinea pig out of the gate, which was Jennifer Martin from Junior Achievement, bless her soul. And the video shows you how we came out of the gate with virtual production, and that triggered where we are today.
Wonderful. I'm going to hit play here. Let me know if you can hear the sound.
This is ShopProductionWorld.com's video blah blah blah.
Right
Hey there, Michael Crichton once again, shopkeeper from Shop Production World with the How Did We Do That Virtually edition. Remember when COVID-19 hit?
Oh, some woman just hit me. She wasn't even one of my exes.
Well, that's what it felt like anyway. And just like that, the live event production industry imploded and pretty much eviscerated. But at Production World, we didn't take it sitting down. We said to ourselves, if you can do meetings virtually, why can't you do live events virtually? So we put the call out there, and before long, Jennifer Martin, the CEO and president of Junior Achievement Northern Alberta, stepped in and said, we want to do that. And from the moment we got together, we had exactly 30 days to put together a live gala and fundraiser for Junior Achievement. So we covered the story, and I'm going to share that with you now in a great video produced by the head of our studio production services, Chris Duncan, and edited by Kasera Kimo. So watch and enjoy.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Quick Cards, a virtual night out.
On May 1st, 6 weeks after our world was turned upside down and Edmonton first.
And good evening, friends, and welcome to Quick Card's virtual night gala in support of Junior Achievement. I'm Danny Hooper.
And I'm Jennifer Martin. Well, ain't this neat?
Is it? Yeah, we got
Production World proudly hosted and produced Quick Card's virtual night out for Junior Achievement, an online gala watched by hundreds of participants on their devices while enjoying a gourmet charcuterie plate delivered to their homes. Apart from not being in the same room, it felt like the real thing.
Any of these?
Yes, there was.
One of them was.
Laughs and a live card trick with a twist. Videos showcasing guests of honor, a welcome from the premier, and a touching tribute to a legendary businessman. There was entertainment.
Her name is Lola.
And believe it or not, a live auction on Zoom.
$10,000 once, $10,000 twice, $10,000 all in.
I was amazed. We only had 5 people participating in the live auction and made an incredible amount of money.
Including the online silent auction and private donations, the event raised more than $65,000. For Junior Achievement, our client, the bold move paid off.
I felt in such good hands with everybody at Production World. Just the attention to detail and the earnest work right from the beginning, the collaboration, the openness, the ease of communication, getting a hold of any of you at any time, day or evening, and the professionalism of the crew during the dress rehearsals, I have to say, really gave me peace of mind. I truly felt in great professional calm hands here, and the show was amazing. It went flawlessly. The kudos are pouring in. We tried a whole bunch of new things, and you guys pulled it off. It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun making a difference from a distance. If you're looking for alternate ways to stage your live event, Production World can help. Go to our website or call 780-452-4843.
Hey, that's the commercial break. Wow. Oh, and then I do a video blog for Shop Production World, and I try to make it, I always have fun. So even though I'm talking about gear or whatever, that's one of the things I like about my job is I get to do different things. And as you can see, I'm in my Shop Production World environment. And, so I get a chance to still have fun in front of the camera.
You get to do it your way.
Get my joy that way too.
You get to do it your way.
Yeah.
There you go. So that's cool. So thanks for, again, sharing that. I do want to maybe go back to William Shatner for a little bit. On your website, you have a page that talks about that. I'm just going to go there. I'm going to surf there. And I want you to talk about the content of that page there, which is kind of cool. You touched on it quite a bit before, but I just wanted to bring that here. And can you see it there, my friend?
Yeah, if you can scroll down a little bit. Maybe scroll down a little bit. So, well, anyway, I guess, I don't know, I've said an awful lot about the process, but it's one thing that I really enjoyed about it is that, and I have to give kudos here to Mike Anderson and Trickstar Productions, because certainly the fact that William Shatner chose him, and then ultimately through that I was selected. Mike really understood what it takes to be able to produce for a person of such a stature, because understand they are long days for him. I mean, he's got a show, he's got the VIP things that he does. He's doing interviews, media interviews during the day. And at that point, he was in his 80s, and he's now in his latter 80s, almost going into his 90s, and he still looks young and is still active. And that's one of the things that amazes me. For age means nothing to this guy, but one had to understand that you really had to be well organized and make sure that it was seamless. And he was always the consummate performer. And so when he would do the VIP stuff and for photo ops and those kinds of things, he was always a smile, little chit chat, move on to the next, and then away he goes. And a couple of times I've seen him a little frustrated because, he's got people pulling on him constantly, and he never stops working. Like I say, he just came out with a blues album. He's probably working on another documentary. Captains is a documentary he produced, and for Star Trek fans, a must watch. And I think it might be on, I don't know if it's on Netflix, but it's somewhere. But if you just Google Captains, William Shatner, it should show up, where he interviews all the captains of Star Trek through the various series. And it's an amazing account of the character of the captain in the context of the Star Trek franchise. But that was an interesting thing, because one of the first questions I asked when we started working, I said, how much do you want to talk about Star Trek? And he said, he was frank. He says, I've talked about Star Trek to be able to have talked about it until, the year 25. He says, obviously, he says, people want to hear about it, but I go to Star Trek conventions, and if you really want to get the Star Trek story, I'd rather it happen at a convention. He says, I want to touch on it, but I don't want to make it the reason for the show. And I said, are there aspects of things that you do want to talk about? And so, because realizing that, there are the obvious things one might talk about. One of the things we never talked about, though, but something I think I learned sort of by implication, was the fact that there was tension in the original series. But because, in a way, Shatner and myself, I think, had a very similar creative process. I think I understood how he might have been operating then. He wanted the show to be the best possible thing it could be, and would take the opportunity. He had a lot of lines. He was on camera a lot. He certainly made sure he was in there, but he pushed the show. He pushed writers. He pushed people to reach out, and they did. I mean, they had the first interracial kiss on television. But I asked him, what aspects do you want to talk about, knowing that there may be some things he would want to talk about and things he didn't. And so we sort of carved out, the things that he was willing to talk about, and then he was comfortable with it. We didn't do any Q&A at the shows. I know we may have done a couple of Q&As, but again, we were very careful so that it didn't end up becoming a Star Trek convention. Mm-hmm. And people asked some pretty interesting questions, but because he talked a lot about various aspects of his life. He talked about some of the series he's been in. He talked about his documentary. He talked about his book. He talked about his family a lot. He talked about his love of horses, and he has a foundation based on his connection with horses that's very prolific, and it's his go-to. It's his charity, and he's very, very devoted to it and does a lot of work with it. So the process of, but here was the thing, was that he had a habit of spontaneously jumping to another topic without warning during the show. When I thought the show and how he would be cued and follow the story, we did it in such a way, and Chris Shonigat from Trickstar at the time was instrumental in helping me organize this, that we were able to follow him. We had to be ready, because he's like that. He'll be talking about something, and then suddenly he's talking about death. And one of the most interesting parts of the show is when he was talking about the death of his character. And when his character dies, he had ultimately arrived at this thing where I remember seeing the film where he looks up and he just goes, oh my. And that's how his character, the last thing his character, James Kirk, says in the lifetime of the character. And he talked about, other aspects of what people say. And he actually said on the stage, what the F does that mean, when he was talking about Timothy Leary brought the house down. But there are these little things about him that I'll always remember in terms of how he connected to the world through the things that he does. And he, he's a robust man. And, we had a little bit of a break in the middle of the tour. And when we got together, he comes up to me and he gives me a big bear hug, and, a gentleman. He's kind of like everybody's dad, Mm-hmm. And, so there are some cherished moments that we have, throughout the course of it. But it was really inspiring. He certainly wasn't this self-centered, egotistically, blind guy. He had an ego for sure, but he was very, very clear on what worked and what didn't work. And certainly he expected respect, and how could you not respect him? And you learn very quickly that if you crossed the line, he'd let you know. But even when he was frustrated, and I remember we were having technical issues in Vancouver setting up the first show, and I hear from the stage, I'm behind the scenes, and I hear from the stage, Michael, I'm getting concerned here. What is wrong? And I said, we're working on a bill, and after that, he didn't say a thing. Mm-hmm. And, so he really has his feet firmly planted on the ground for a man of his celebrity stature, and I admire him for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Keith. Keith Quast has just chimed in here. He said, another great conversation. So we got viewers who are enjoying the conversation.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Keith. Many more viewers, of course, enjoyed it in the rerun or the recorded version of this as well. And so Michael, I wanted to perhaps just take a pause here and say, when I reach out to you and ask, do you have an hour and a bit to join us on this conversation? Were there topics that you want to talk about that we haven't gotten to yet, my friend?
Not really. I mean, we touched on music, and I think I touched on some salient points. If anything, I'm trying to get back into doing more music. We have such a talented crew here at Production World. We actually built my guitar. Ken Green works in the commercial division, and we built a Wolfgang Telecaster, believe it or not.
Oh wow!
Out of African mahogany, and the best guitar I've ever had. I need to do more music, and I'm expecting an invite to your studio. But it's funny because I was trained in music, piano, Royal Conservatory, self-taught on guitar. But and people keep saying, you need to get back in your music. And I've written a couple of songs in the last 6 months, but I do need to refocus myself and be more disciplined about that. But really, aside from talking about my family, you want to throw a wonderful, goofy picture up of my family. That was taken on my 65th birthday this year. Yeah. So if you could throw that picture up for shits and giggles, that'd be great.
You bet. I'll do that. Now, while I'm working,
I could talk about a lot of things. I could talk about relationships. That's about a 30-second conversation. And well, I do have one thing about men and women. See, men are task-oriented, women are relationship-oriented. See, women managed the community when we were back in the Stone Age. Men went out with a spear and hunted. Women are much better at managing. And that's why you see so many women in positions now, especially in healthcare, but everywhere. Matter of fact, I think if women ran the world, probably it'd be a better place. Not that I'm trying to impress women, but I really do believe that there is this distinction quite often between men and women. I almost thought I'd write my own little short book about my take on relationships. There's my family. Not all of them are there, but my daughter on the right in the white shirt, and my grandchildren, of course, the middle, Brock's on the left-hand side of the picture, and his wife, Suzanne. Hannah, who's Suzanne's sister, and so that was us celebrating on my son's newly built deck that he's so proud of. And I mean, they're, really it's come down in my life now. It's family and it's the work that I do, which is not really work. It's a career and it's fun for me. I mean, I'll never retire. And I've got these guys to keep me on the straight and narrow. And believe you me, it's wonderful to see the creativity among them. And my granddaughters are amazingly creative. Of course, all children are, but all three of them are just so much fun to watch children, young children, in how they connect with the world in this unabashed, unvarnished way. It's always just mind-boggling. Love you, my family. Love you, my family.
Yeah. I'm just going to play the photos again here, let it kind of circulate as we head our way to...
that's Stephen Mandel. I had the privilege to produce his tribute show and the roast The roast, I believe, was at the River Cree, and the tribute, I think, was at Shaw Conference. And I interviewed Stephen over many years because he was always a go-to interview for the tribute videos. So that's me and John. He was also involved in this is, I think, in connection with Rockfest at the time, which we do the production for a concert in Harlech Park every year. And he actually said something about Axe Productions at the time where he said this is a really world-class facility. And so Stephen I always liked Stephen. I mean, I'm sure everybody has their opinions, but I don't know. He was a very practical, pragmatic kind of guy, and kind of a dry sense of humor that I always appreciated. And John Beckett, of course, one of the two co-founders and of the company. And John's a wonderful man. Wonderful man. So is Kelly. They're wonderful leaders. They really do. They let their people do their thing. That's the new. Yeah. Okay.
I want to get to a couple photos that we haven't talked about.
Sure.
This is that Vietnamese translation.
The Vietnamese one, yeah. Wonder how I'm doing out there.
I'm gonna say it for you, okay? 60 giây một lý tưởng, giải phóng ý tưởng, khơi nguồn sáng tạo trong bạn. There you go.
Is this the point where I say thank you or oh no?
This is so I know you scanned it from whatever. It's low enough resolution that I'm having
it's a terrible resolution, but
I'm having difficulty.
I actually wanted to do it because it had the language on it, and I thought maybe you'd take a shot.
Yeah, I mean, because Vietnamese has a lot of accents and whatnot and dots and whatnot, and when it's low resolution, if you're missing some of those accents and dots, it actually is a different word. Right?
Hey, I learned something today. I did not know that.
Oh yeah. For example, the word for mother, like ma, like ma, right? Ma, like you have to have a upward sound to it. Ma. If you say ma without the word up sound or the accent, it is actually ghost. So it's like ma without the accent on top, without a little kind of slash on top. Like this little thing right here that you see right here?
Yeah.
Without that sign, without the symbol above MA, is actually would be ghost. With that symbol is mom, right? So quite a different thing.
So how would you say thank you?
Cảm ơn.
Gamma?
Cảm ơn. So CAM, cam, go higher. Ơn, like ON, but ơn with a little.
Cảm ơn.
Yeah.
Oh, cảm ơn for having me on your show.
There you go. And look at how much it is. Okay. The cover price, you can tell.
Yeah, I know. That's like 190. It's only $129,000.
Yeah, 120,000 dong. Đồng. 129,000 đồng.
You could say my book has a lot of dong on it.
Yeah, you bet. 129,000. I missed that. Somebody said something. Okay, so I want to look at one of the photos here, my friend, and I want to hear from you. Tell us about this photo. We haven't gone here.
Well, that is, you know what? I'm drawing a blank now. Premier
Redford,
yes. Mm-hmm. See, when he turns 65, you start to forget the name of politicians. So she was speaking. This is at one of those Edmonton Chamber balls. And it just so happened she was speaking, and I had a chance, because what I would do as well is I would direct and also kind of act as the person making sure they get on stage and talk to them before if they had any questions. And we had like 15 seconds, and I said, "Would you mind?" Because Nick Hirschman, a photographer that Axe Productions and Production World has worked with over the years, he was shooting the event, and he happened to be in the area, and I looked at him. I said, "Come over here." And I went up to the premier and I said, "Would you mind if I get a shot?" And I really liked it because she said, "Oh, sure." Like she was very, very, very comfortable. And so it's kind of a nice shot because it was nice to see that, we had a woman as a premier of the province. And so to me, it's a little bit of Alberta history. And I had a chance to, get a piece of a memory of that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful photo. It's
It is. I love it. It's great and works perfectly in black and white. And of course, I always wore dress blacks, and she was wearing black as well. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. Wonderful person.
Yeah, very
Short-lived as premier, but
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah. There's the book again.
There's the cover of the book. And by the way, I'm happy to say, based on my design, in fact, I designed it, and then my son kind of finessed it, but the stopwatch as the zero was something I wanted to do. And, it ended up looking pretty good, typical of the self-help genre look. You'll see a lot of books that are very similar in many respects. And after that, I was seeing a bunch of them coming out with, it's the 1 Minute Manager had occurred a long time ago, but one of the things that sold the book to Gildan Media out of New York, and Gildan Media is a company owned by Gildan, who was the vice president of electronic publishing for Penguin International. And then he broke away many, many years ago and started his own company, was one of the first to put together a very strong relationship with Amazon. So we were in very good hands, and I'm in there with, they have Dennis Waitley and Zig Ziglar and his son Tom Ziglar and other people, and so I was very, very proud to be included in a publishing company that had those guys on the roster as well. And but typically they love the title, and that was probably the biggest thing that sold the book to Gildan, and that's why I got the deal so fast.
You bet. I love the title. I love the book cover. I also, even the colors work really well.
Yeah, very simple.
Let me just highlight for our viewers, and in fact, I'm going to read it out. There's a quote at the bottom there from Gary Chappell, past president, CEO of Nightingale Conant, Chicago. He says, so Gary Chappell says, Michael Crichton has the unique ability to bring out the creative genius inside us. His learnable techniques spawn inspired solution that can be tapped by any time. Absolutely brilliant, he said. Now, I do want to ride on that and say, you mentioned earlier Earl Nightingale, right? So one of the quotes that I love from Earl Nightingale back in the 50s there, when he said, success, right? Success is a progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So you don't have to get somewhere or hit a particular target or milestone to consider yourself successful. If you are on a progressive realization journey, progressively realizing your goals or your ideals, then you can look yourself and saying, I'm successful right now. I don't have to wait until I hit, I win the Stanley Cup to say I'm successful. If you want to be an awesome hockey player and you spend your life doing that, you are on that journey and you're able to continually improve and continually, then you're successful in my mind. So that's the quote that I just love, and I'm pretty much guided by that.
One of my favorite quotes from him is, you become what you think about. Getting back to what you were saying too, I guess there's a parallel in how I think of it in different words, but we think the same thing. I think people can be driven and say, by the time I have a big mansion or the big contract or whatever, then I'll know I'm successful. Real success happens every day. And that's why even within my book, in the sense of creativity, little ideas spawn more ideas, and sometimes they link up. But I think if you can find a place in your life where you can see the small successes and really enjoy them, celebrate them, and live more in the moment, because we give meaning to the present. That's how we live life. It's how we give meaning to it every second of the day. And if we can enjoy those successes, which means, for example, with your family, it doesn't have to be a big thing that happens, a small thing. At work, the same thing, where someone can come around, just pat you on the back and say, hey, you're doing a great job, or really love what you did with that. Every day, we should stop and smell the roses, because if we are living our life on the basis of a final result, well, that's a low probability that maybe that goal is going to be achieved. Yes, you might realize the dream of a lifetime. Like for me, I can say Shatner, working with him was the realization of a dream of a lifetime. Publishing my book was a dream of a lifetime. I'm very fortunate. But even there, when I published my manuscript and finished, I didn't think about, yeah, I'd like to see it published. The first thought I had is, I've done it, page by page. And if anything, it's a legacy now for my children. And this is the way, even with the people I work with every day, it's about, what do you get done today? How do you work today? And so I hope that, that people can become inspired more so by that. And I wonder if in a lot of ways, COVID has been a smack in the face for some people, because suddenly you're more shackled, you're more limited, suddenly days are going by and you feel that you're constrained, that you're maybe even cut off to some degree. And actually for me, I never feel that way. I mean, I do miss things. I mean, I miss seeing my friends as often as I might. I haven't been out for dinner in a long time. I haven't been to live music except for the stuff that we might do here. So I can understand that sense of isolation. But the thing is, if you start to really look, a little bit more closer to who you are and what you're about, you may find things. And if you start to celebrate those successes, and what I say to my children, if you want to make money, then become a stockbroker. But if you want to enjoy a successful life, love what you do. And that means loving it every day. Even when the stuff doesn't work out, find solution. Find that looking for that solution is a good challenge, not a bad challenge. And I agree with you 100%. It's, the final success is just a derivative that comes at the end of many events, many successes, and many failures. You know what? Sometimes they say the first step to success is failure, or the first step to failure is success. So we have to embrace failure too. But again, instead of thinking it's a failure, I don't even like the word, just think of it as an objective not reached and an opportunity to learn something and shift your thinking, reapply yourself, maybe reach out and get help, whatever it may be. So, I find that central in many respects. Maybe as I get older, that becomes even more central to the way that I live my life.
Yeah. Just as an example, going back to Star Trek, just for fun, going back to Star Trek. If you imagine building the Starship Enterprise, we don't say that success doesn't happen until the Starship Enterprise is commissioned and, take off into space. Yes, that's one success, but there's been many, 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 many countless successes that has to happen long before that culminated into the Starship Enterprise taking flight. Even if at the end of your working on that project, if you will, you didn't get to see the Starship Enterprise take flight, I'm sure and I'm hoping that you're able to see successes along the way. I'm hoping you're able to see and celebrate successes along the way. Do not wait for the big, quote unquote, big thing before you would consider yourself successful and before you celebrate your successful, because the only thing that we know for sure is we all have a limited lifespan, and eventually we'll be done with this world here. And when we're done with this world, it's going to be more, not so much what we accomplish, but it's did we enjoy our life? Did we celebrate successes? Did we have relationships that make sense? The fact that you had an awesome whatever it is that you call success is wonderful, but I'm hoping that you can see successes in the incremental sense as well on the journey.
Well, and it's cliche, but very meaningful. It's not the destination; it's the journey. And I would say it took me a while before I finally, I think, arrived at that kind of thinking more so, and I would say a product of maturity. I mean, one can have that earlier in life, and I think my sons do, and my daughter, I think they're very in touch with their present, and I keep reminding them, and but they do, they live very, very much today. And work at what they want to do tomorrow. And it's admirable. And I wish in a lot of ways I had that, because I know that when I was young, and there'll be people who who know me would say that, yeah, I was a bit of a hardhead, definitely had an ego and was pushed hard. I mean, not in my defense, but I can certainly say one thing that drove it was the fact that I had to fight for creative stuff every day. You know, there were moms and pop stores that, you know, wanted to do things that I knew were going to be ineffective, and I knew it because they'd already done it. And I wanted to bring new ways of trying things that worked, and I was hungry to do that. But as a result, too, I could be a little pushy, and I certainly ruffled feathers and, you know, nicked some shins along the way. But if you can start earlier in your life and realize that kind of thinking, then you will have a successful life, and it will not be measured by the size of your bank account or the size of your house or, you know, what bling you're wearing. You know, success will be something far more deeper and substantive than that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining us on this journey of talking about all these wonderful and meaningful things. Folks, you have been listening to Michael Crichton. And Michael, I'm going to have you take us home on this particular broadcast here, my friend. I'm going to turn things over to you. And when we're done with the wrapping up there, stay in the green room. I'll give you a high five in there. But it's yours, my friend, to take us home. Take us home.
Well, I would say in honor of my, you know, very wonderful host, and I really do appreciate you asking me to do this. I may have been long in the tooth, but hey, when the camera's on you, you might as well say something. So I'm going to leave it at this, you know, perhaps the most overword used in the English language, but still has its value. Gam un.
Gammon, thank you.
And you'll have to come by the studio, and it's called The Studio, by the way, but you'll have to come by and check it out, and I'll give you the tour, and we can compare notes. But thank you very much, and thanks to anybody who watched, and hope you got something out of it.
You bet. Well, thank you so much again, Michael. And folks, until we meet again, have a wonderful day. Take good care of yourself. Take good care of one another, and be kind. When in doubt, be kind. When not in doubt, still be kind.